From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
We're going to begin on Tuesday, November 30th, with a story coming out of NavyTimes.com. The headline is, "Despite reports of rashes, sickness after fuel leak, Hawaii base water is safe," Navy says. I'm going to read directly from this a bit. Although some residents aboard Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, which is in Hawaii, have complained of headaches, stomach aches, skin rashes, and pet illnesses from water that smells like gasoline, Navy officials say the water is safe to drink. Now, the Hawaii Department of Health and Navy tested the water, and they found no measurable quantities of fuel. And you can actually go to Facebook.com and you can look up this Facebook post, which was made on the 29th of November. So I'm going to read directly from this Facebook post. The Navy is investigating reports of a chemical smell in drinking water at several homes and some of the military housing areas for this base. There is no immediate indication that the water is not safe. The Navy continues to investigate reports and is testing the water. Navy engineers visited several homes of families who reported the smell and also immediately went to Navy's drinking water wells to investigate. There was no smell or sign of fuel or chemicals in the water at the Navy's water wells and water tanks. Specialists took samples of water at several locations for testing. They're saying they continue to monitor, investigate, and will update residents. Meanwhile, the residents of this base and the surrounding areas are all saying, hey, our water smells like petroleum fuel. It smells like it so much, it's crazy, and we're all getting sick. So this is happening on November 30th. Okay, this is all like real-time events at that moment. And the Navy essentially came through and said, hey, we tested the water, we checked it out. Officially, the water's fine. Go about your business. You're good to go. However, if you jump back to the article from Navy Times, they're saying that the Red Hill facility, which holds 20 underground fuel storage tanks that date all the way back to World War II, it sits above an aquifer, which supplies water to Oahu, the island there, Oahu in Hawaii. And in the past, it's been the source of multiple leaks. So it is a known quantity that this Navy fuel storage system is above the aquifer that is sending people water. And it's smelling like fuel. And all the residents seem to be going, here's this piece. Oh, wait, this puzzle fits. Right. But the Navy itself, at least as of November 30th, we're saying, no, there's nothing to see here. Ben, I'm going to jump to the next story, but let's talk about this first, as this is happening.
Yeah, this is the thing. So, Matt, as you know, I have traveled widely in my time or whatever, and I have been to some really sketchy places. I've been to some really nice places. Honolulu itself, Hawaii itself, is in many ways a study in contradiction, right? Culturally, it is very different from what you would consider mainland U.S. probably, in that it is a mix of so many distinct cultures, and the nation itself, the Kingdom of Hawaii, which it was until the 1950s. Shout out to Codename Doc Holiday's excellent Stuff They Don't Want You to Know episode on Hawaii. Sure. Check that out. The area of Honolulu itself, the capital city, it has a very, very, very big military presence. Because if you look at Hawaii on a map, you will see just how far away it is from the rest of the United States. And its position is so strategic. So there's definitely going to be a huge military presence on the archipelago for the foreseeable future, and that's going to remain incredibly controversial. There's a lot of resistance from the local population to having the U.S. Navy there. I mean, sure, you can make the argument that it provides a ton of jobs, et cetera, et cetera. It provides security. And from the U.S. perspective, it makes absolute sense to have the infrastructure they have in that area. However, it sounds like this is something that's been a long time coming that came to a head. These sorts of the effects of tainted drinking water, just like you can see with lead poisoning, just like you can see with Flint, Michigan, the effects of this stuff aggregate over time. Yeah. So I'm thinking, and I bet you and I are on the same page, because you alluded to it as well. I'm thinking maybe something reached a tipping point, and there was always some kind of concern about this.
Well, oh yeah, there has been, and it's specifically this thing called the Red Hill facility is what it's referred to as, and it's the fuel tanks that are sitting above the aquifer, because having that infrastructure from the U.S. military is having or can possibly have a major effect on way more people than just those who are employed by the military on those bases and in the surrounding areas, because that aquifer sends water to people across that island, the island of Oahu. And we're not talking about a few, we're talking about hundreds of thousands. So let's look at the Red Hills kind of track record, the fuel tank. In 2014, more than 24,000 gallons of fuel leaked. Okay? Not great. On May 6th, a little over 1,600 gallons of jet fuel were spilled from a pipeline at the facility. According to the Navy, all but 38 gallons were recovered in that incident. But in November, on the 20th and the 21st, 14,000 gallons of fuel and water spilled from a drain line near the Red Hill facility. And that's from a statement by the military on November 22nd. So residents there are aware that there was a fuel spill, and they're aware that there appears to be fuel in their water. And again, it's the residents putting the pieces together before the officials come forward with a statement to say, hey, don't drink that water. It's contaminated.
Yeah,
right?
They're like, wow, thanks. Thanks for cluing us in. We had no idea.
Well, yeah. And the official statement that came out at that time was something pretty innocuous. Like, we recommend that, residents in these areas do not use the water for bathing or ingesting or, general things you would use water for. Just maybe don't do that. We'd recommend it for now. Mm-hmm. So again, this is on Tuesday, November 30th, all of that. Then on Friday, December 3rd, the Navy comes out and admits, yes, Pearl Harbor well is contaminated with petroleum. And this comes from military.com. Mm-hmm. And you can actually, again, go back to Facebook if you like, and you can watch the little press conference, essentially, where they made this announcement to everybody, because the families were rightly freaking out. Imagine that. If you're unaware if you can use your water or not, but it's really the only source of water you've got. Let's say you've got a child, maybe a child that's using baby formula. You're going to mix that baby formula with the water coming out of the tap because that's what you have available. You should see the Facebook comments on that page of families just trying to get an answer of whether or not the water is okay for days and days and days. You may think Tuesday to Friday, that isn't that long of a time span, but if you're imagining all the things you use water for in your daily life, that's forever. Especially if there's no answers and you're not getting water provided to you in some other way, as it is supposed to be.
Yeah. And to be clear, Hawaii gets the majority of its water from groundwater.
Yes.
And if we could talk a little bit about Red Hill, it's an old thing. It was built back in the 40s, I think. So this has been around for decades and decades, which means that it needs a lot of maintenance and a lot of overhauling. And that gets dangerous because it's the question becomes something like, this glass is broken. How do I fix this broken glass without taking out, the beverage in it? How do I fix this gas tank without losing any gas? It's tough. These things are huge. We're talking like 100 feet in diameter, 250 feet deep or tall. I don't know, man. I feel like, and I don't mean to sound, conspiratorial or whatever, but I feel like this is one of those problems that can get kicked down the road pretty often until it reaches a point like this, because it's no secret. The U.S. has a huge infrastructure problem. Stuff is
only
going
we
to
could get a
falling
giant
apart.
bill passed for trillions of dollars.
You know what? I don't know what the answer is. Do I know how much of that money that would get approved would actually end up going to the work that needs to be done? I don't know. And there are a lot of people like Army Corps engineers and so on, at least in the mainland side, who have been rightly pointing out this problem. And there's been no shortage of people pointing this problem out in Hawaii as well. I know that there was a Senate bill, Senate Bill 1259, with the great title relating to underground storage tanks, that was going to require the DOH Department of Health to start having better regulations, to have underground storage tanks and tank systems conform to federal regulations, which apparently they didn't beforehand, and to get some additional requirements, safety requirements, maintenance stuff, regulatory stuff. That bill was introduced in 2017, and then eventually it got tabled, which means it didn't go anywhere.
Well, yeah. In this case, we're talking about jet fuel and diesel storage that's underground, not very far above an aquifer. Like, that to me is the problem. You're gonna store volatile hydrocarbons just above the place where all the clean water is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just seems like a bad idea. And I know I get what you're saying, Ben, and I agree with you on many of those points. In this case, if you look to that article that I was mentioning from Friday, December 3rd, when they finally come out and admit this stuff is happening, they say and disclose that on Sunday, 5 days prior to their disclosure here, they had tested water at the site. And that, quote, one test was taken on Sunday night shortly after this incident was identified to the Navy. And that test identified trace amounts of very volatile hydrocarbons that would normally be associated with JP5, which is jet fuel, or diesel fuel. So on Sunday, they found trace amounts, right? Which I suppose if you're testing there at the source where the leak occurred and you're only finding trace amounts, maybe you're not that worried. But when you remember that, again, it's just above the aquifer. So anything that did spill out that isn't immediately in that area now has gone probably down, out and down. Which is why you need, when something like that occurs, it just means that no matter what you are, if you're a private corporation, if you're a giant, arm of the U.S. military, you need to alert people who may be affected, by your actions. And even if it's not your actions, maybe it's just an accident that occurred because of aging infrastructure. You still got to be able to put that word out really quickly and help people who need that information. Yeah,
man. Agreed. I mean, look, I don't think either of us are saying someone in the U.S. military is sitting around steepling their fingers, Monty Burns style, and saying, yes, let it leak just a little.
No, but I'm not saying that at all.
Right. I don't think we are.
No, what I mean is, like, this is one example of the kind of thing that happens pretty frequently. And I would take it back to Flint, Michigan. I take it back to other stories that we've covered like this, where some small problem that would appears to be a small problem in the beginning turns out to be a way bigger issue, and nobody wants to admit that it's happening, or even come out and officially say it's happening until you get all the information. But it just stinks, because maybe that's the right thing to do from an organizational strategic perspective, But in the end, there are consequences to real
Sure.
people who
Yeah.
live in an affected area.
Yeah, and this is an especially extreme case of that because it's not occurring in a vacuum. Uncle Sam actually has a terrible history with pollution in and around Hawaii. I believe they had dumped tens of thousands of bombs in the ocean off Oahu from like 44 all the way to 1978. Those bombs, a lot of them are still down there. Some of them are filled with crazy damaging stuff. They like hydrogen cyanide, mustard bombs, things like that, just sort of into the ocean. It was not a good splash noise, folks, but we're working live. You can actually learn more about this in a book that came out just this year, I believe, called Poisoning the Pacific, the U.S. Military's Secret Dumping of Plutonium, Chemical Weapons, and Agent Orange. So as unfortunate as it is to point it out, the people of Hawaii are probably not especially surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure. If you look, and this is not all that's happening right now, I think it was Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday on CNN. They posted a story. Honolulu shut down its largest water source in Oahu due to reported contamination of Navy well near Pearl Harbor. So, again, it's called the Halawa Shaft. I think that's how you would say that. It's Oahu's largest water source that they had to shut down while the contamination is being corrected, let's say. So you can learn all about that if you head over there. Again, they go deeper into some of the fuel leaks that have come out of that particular place. Just want everybody to get as much information as they can.
If you are listening to this in Hawaii, whether in Honolulu or somewhere else in the state, we would love to hear your perspective on this. What do people on the ground think is going to come of this? Better regulations or just something that flashes in the news cycle and then gets suppressed? Also, if you are the person, well, not name, who drank too much with me at that bar, that weird bar, well, shout out to you, and thanks for tuning in. See, I really do have a show. All right. But my name isn't Chris. That was my bad.
Oh, what?
Oh, man. Yeah. But it's true, Matt. And this is an important story because these things happen around the world in ways that don't often get as much attention as they should. You know what I mean? The horrors of things like depleted uranium, the long-standing chemical effects of dump sites, or the terrible stuff that happens to people in parts of India who work in shipbreaking. For anyone who's not familiar with shipbreaking, it's exactly what it sounds like. When it's time to retire a ship, who breaks it apart into smaller pieces? But the world is full of dangerous pollution like this, and bringing awareness to it is important. If you have lived in Hawaii, if you live there now, we want to hear your perspective of the people on the ground now. Like, what do they think is going to happen? Do they believe what the military is saying? Do they think it's only a matter of time before this happens again? Let us know what's on your mind. We try to be easy to find online.
Yes, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where we are Conspiracy Stuff. You can also find us on Instagram, where we are Conspiracy Stuff Show. If you could take a moment, please, right now, just a moment, stop doing the dishes. That's usually how I'm listening to podcasts, or doing laundry, or going for a run, or whatever you're doing. And just head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this, and please give us a quick review. It could be literally a run-on sentence, a full sentence.
Mm-hmm.
You could even do 3 if you're feeling nuts.
A code? It could be. I don't know if they let you do emoji, but yeah, as Matt's saying, a shout out to our super producers, Mission Control, or codenamed Doc. We'd love to hear from you, and those reviews do matter. They do help us. Yeah,
they really do help our show. So we'd really appreciate it if you liked this episode or the show in general. If you do not like social media, there's another way you can contact us.
Yes, that's correct. You can right now. Should you be the possessor of a telephonic device, give us a call. From your mouth to our ears, all you have to do is dial, say it with me, 1-833-STDWYTK. You'll get a message ensuring you that you're in the right place. You'll have 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes are your own. Go nuts. Get weird with it. Give yourself a nickname. Tell us what's on your mind. Let us know if we can use your name and or message on the air. And most importantly, do not edit yourself. I mean, you can put in a beep over a curse word if you think it's funny. I assure you, I think it's funny. But if you have a story that's like 10 minutes or 15 minutes, don't feel like you have to keep calling back. Just send us an email. Write the whole thing out. Give us those links. Give us those pictures. We read every single email we get. All you have to do is drop us a line where we are.
Conspiracy@iheartradio.com.